What it do, non-smite crew? We are finally back with another edition of Should You Buy, where I review a game and help you determine should you buy it. Today's edition will be on Exoprimal, released both for $60 and straight to Game Pass. I will help you determine should you buy Exoprimal. The premise of this game is pretty simple, but also very cool. You're just in an exosuit shooting the shit out of dinosaurs. The actual gameplay, however, may be a little bit different than what you might expect. It's actually a PvPvE game where you're divided up into two teams of 5. Both teams are given the goal of completing the objectives before the enemy team can. You'll go through different objectives such as dinosaur culling, area defense, VTOL defense, with the main objective being completing everything faster than the enemy team. At the end of each of these missions is a final mission which is divided into PvE or PvP. When the PvE isn't fully PvE, it's only that you don't have direct combat with the enemy team, but they can send a player-controlled dinosaur to impede your progress. And of course, the PvP side of things is you are in direct combat with the enemy team, and they could also send dinosaurs to help mess you up too. There are actually more game modes than this, but I'll get into that later when I talk about progression within the game. This game is actually more like a hero-based shooter in regards to the characters that you play. You choose different exofighters which are divided up into different classes depending on what their intention is to do. You have the assault, which is the DPS classes, and of course supports and tanks. They all handle differently, have different weapons, different abilities, and different ultimate abilities. You also have a lot of freedom when it comes to team comps. You're not limited to any sort of team that you want to build. If you want to have all of one of the same type of exofighter, you can. If you don't want to have a support, you can. If you don't want to have a tank, you can. You have a lot of freedom when it comes to how you want to play the game, even if it's not the most optimal. You can also further modify your exofighters by adding rigs, which add little bits of help to your class, like there's a cannon, so if you want more DPS, there's a little first aid thing that you could throw down if you want additional healing, stuff like that. Basically little augments to the class to make them a little more unique and more your style. It may not be the most verbose explanation, but the game is just fun. Like from the premise to the execution, you're just shooting dinosaurs, or you're defending your team from dinosaurs, or you're healing teammates who are fighting the dinosaurs. That's just the whole sort of premise going on. You're just fighting off dinosaurs in exosuits, and that's super cool. And it's just fun, Are there really any other games out there where you can say that you can do stuff like that? And it helps that all of the exofighters are fun. All of them are cool to use. I've played almost all of them besides one, and I've loved playing every single one of them. I think this is one thing that the game does very well, where every role and every character is just fun, at least to me. And from what I've seen, I think other people do agree. Like, playing support in this game is fun. Playing tank in this game is fun. I never run into issues where no one wants to play those two roles, and if those roles aren't filled, I'm perfectly fine playing them because they're just as fun, if not more, than playing the DPS classes. And with the way team comps and rigs work, you can fully go on without a healer if you have the right setup for it. You can go on a tank without that type of setup as well. You have a lot of freedom, and even then, it's fun to just play all the characters. I can't wait to unlock the last character because I want to play all of them and I want to level them all up. Like I said, the game is just fun. Like, you go up against a whole bunch of little dinosaurs and they're easy at first, and you go through the missions and then you're fighting huge hordes of dinosaurs that you have to hold off. And there's big boss type dinosaurs like the Triceratops where you have to really use your team and use the right exofighters to kill them effectively and faster than the enemy team. It's just a fun game with a fun premise. I just like being the shit out of dinosaurs or something. Jumping off the high that is the gameplay, we have the story, which I think it's good. I don't think it's crazy, not gonna win any awards. It's not like a Nier Automata or something level story, but it's good. I enjoy it. The characters are cool, the whole premise is cool. It does have an unorthodox way of how they tell the story though. It's fully intertwined within the multiplayer aspect of the game. You play the war games, dinosaur survival stuff, and you'll get more data logs, which lets you progress through the story. And as you progress through the story, you'll unlock harder, more complex missions with cooler, harder dinosaurs to fight. There are cutscenes and stuff, but it's all intermittently between you just playing the game regularly. In terms of the audio and the visuals, I'm pretty content with the game. I don't think it's insane, but I think the game does look good. The designs are cool. The dinosaurs look cool, especially when you get to the more advanced and harder dinosaurs. They have some really cool designs, but overall, sound design's cool, the music's cool. All of it's just I'm a fan of it. It's not bad. It's not great, but I do think it is pretty good, and the game overall looks good, and I haven't run into any graphical or audio problems or anything like that. So, thumbs up there. The gameplay makes my, simple brain go happy, but there are some problems with the game. I don't think there's many, but I do think that there's quite a few things that could be cleaned up to make the whole experience better, especially for newer players. So, a common complaint that I've seen about the game is how repetitive it is. And to a point, I will agree, there is a finite amount of things that you can do in this game, but to say that there's no difference in gameplay loop overall is just flat out wrong. Because there is progression, not just in like exosuits and leveling them up, but there's actual different levels, different objectives, and different dinosaurs that you can fight. The problem is that there's no indication that this progression is actually a thing. The only way to find out that there's more missions past killing raptors, pterodons, and the occasional triceratops is to either play through the allotted amount of games you need to progress the story to unlock these missions, or to read and watch a review like this one that tells you there's more than just the regular basic missions. It's no secret that the most important parts of a game are its opening hours, especially a game like this one. Most players who are casual, which is most of the player base, are going to judge their experiences based on the first couple hours that they play the game. If they go through and see that nothing's changing fundamentally with the gameplay, they're going to assume that that's the whole entire game right then and there, and for a lot of reviews out there, that is what people are assuming. It's not a substantial amount of time, but you do need to put in a fair amount of matches before you actually start seeing progression. When that progression hits, it's awesome, but a lot of players are not going to get to that point because they just assume the game's all the same. I can understand wanting to keep these cooler missions locked away until you get more experience and more coordination, but if there's no indication whatsoever that there's any progression, people are just going to assume the opposite. Keeping things locked away like this can make sense in like a single player sense for the narrative, but in a multiplayer focused game like this where you want to have a big player base, I feel like you need to have something that at least just says, hey, you play more games and eventually you'll start unlocking more challenging missions, more cooler dinosaurs, stuff like that. The bots in this game are actually pretty good for what they are, but you play this game because you want to play with other people against other real people. It's not the same when it's just bots. This game needs a player base to survive, and I think having an indicator like that would help out so much with retaining the player base. Other than that, I do have a couple smaller gripes I'll hit on, but they're not like huge, and they're more along the lines of, I do wish that these were improved on, so for now, of course, dock them points on this one. I think this game has kind of an issue with not really giving players a lot of information. Like when you're first dropped into the game, past the tutorial, like you go straight into multiplayer, and then it's just like, yes, this is what you do, just follow the other players, I guess. You don't really get too much of an explanation on how the game actually works. When you're looking at the hangar and looking at your exosuits, you can't even look at what their abilities are. You have to go all the way into training at least to look at them, and it's it'd be kind of convenient to have them just where you can read them in the menus instead of actually going into a game. And finally, I don't think the post-game lobby really gives you enough relevant information. You get to see your score, but it's kind of an inaccurate measurement of how well you did. I think it'd be cool to see stats like how many raptors you killed, or how much damage you did overall, or how much damage you did to the boss dinosaurs, or how much damage you tanked, or how much healing you did. Stuff like that would be cool to see, especially since it's a competitive game and you may want to see those stats to see what you can improve on. Again, they're not huge complaints, but there's things that I wish that were, already there and could easily be improved on, I think. And again, here, not a huge gripe because it's not affecting gameplay or anything, but there's balance issues with the score. If you're playing a healer like Witch Doctor, your score is going to skyrocket. It's super easy to get a high score. But if you play something like Zephyr or something, your score is going to be bad all the time. Sometimes it'll be not as bad, but reaching over 100,000 score on those characters is hard. And it's not a huge complaint again, but it would be cool since it's supposed to be a measure of how good you are if it was more equalized or balanced for certain characters. There is a module system in this game, which is basically the more you level up your exosuit, the more additional abilities and stat increases you could add onto your exosuit. And I think this is I don't really know how to feel about this issue because obviously players with more time are going to not only have more suits, but have more effective suits. But I haven't really had a problem with that. I'm not really too high level compared to other people in the game. My exosuits aren't that crazy high level, but I never seemed like that was an issue with winning or losing. I think I have one more than I've lost, even counting PvP games. So yeah, I don't really know how to judge it because I don't think it's been effective enough to where I'm like, I feel disadvantaged as a newer player. But at the same time, I don't know if it's worth it to even go that distance to level them up that much. So I don't know. I think it's a weird system I'm neutral on at the moment. This game was actually hard for me to come to an objective conclusion on because personally, I've been loving the game. I got it through Game Pass. I've told my friends to download it. I'm playing it with friends already, and it's a super fun game. We've all been having a great time with it. I love it. I love the premise. It's over the top. It's stupid, but it's just like fun, you know? I just like hopping on, killing some dinosaurs, and getting off. Say, hey, that was an awesome game. I've progressed enough through the game naturally, not even knowing there were more missions, and I'm like over here fighting T-Rexes and stuff and doing all these crazy new missions, and there's like even PvE raids of full 10-man teams. Like there's a whole lot of stuff to this game that I'm loving. So like personally for me, I'm here sitting over here thinking like this is like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. You know, I'm having a great time with this. There's of course things I'd like to fix, things I'd like to see this where you go in the future. You know, like I'd like to see them go way over the top. You know, like add Monster Hunter monsters or something into the game. But overall, I'm having a great time. The real problem is if you're deciding to fully buy this game without Game Pass, because that's a lot harder of a conversation to have, especially if you're not like me. If you're buying Game Pass solely just to play this game, I'd say 100% do it. You have a whole month to play it. That's awesome. I fully recommend that. If you have Game Pass already or can buy Game Pass, yes, I'd say you should definitely buy it. But when it comes to buying it for $60, I actually think that unless you're 100% like in, like after all the reviews and videos and stuff that you're in on this type of gameplay style and gameplay overall, I think you should actually wait for a sale. While I do think it's a very fun game, some people aren't as enthusiastic about the fact that it's always a competition against the other team and that there is instances of fighting the other players and that it's not really a straightforward do mission, kill the dinosaurs or whatever. It's a full-on team-based multiplayer experience all the time. For most people overall, though, I would recommend it. It's just that, you know, at that sort of price point, if you're on the fence, I say it's great, but at the same time, you know, you would know your style of games better than I do, and you'd have to sort of judge if this is something that you're willing to go into. Overall, though, I would say yes, fully recommend in most cases. So yes, that is my should you buy review of Exoprimal. I do really hope to see a lot of more people like give this game a chance. It got a lot of mixed reviews, but I think the game's like stupid fun. Like it's legitimately stupid but very fun at the same time. There's a whole bunch of other updates planned and stuff, and I hope they like push it over the top. Like again, collab with Monster Hunter or something. That'd be like really cool. So yeah. I love this game so far, and I hope that all of you who do buy it will love it too. I'll see y'all next time.